Good morning.
Good morning.
As you see, Breck is not here. She's living her best life in Arizona right now. So instead, I have Loralee Ward on with me. Um, Loralee is a barrel racer. She does futurity horses, young horses, and rodeo, along with being a college athlete.
Yep.
Anything else you do, Dolly?
I am Cody's sister. I used to pen and sort, but I just run barrels now. Yeah, that's about it.
I was just going to leave Cody out of it. I was going to let you be a woman all on your own.
Oh, he's like my only friend besides my dog, so.
I take offense to that.
Remy is my friend.
So we're not going to do all the chit chat I normally do with Breck because you and I catch up all the time. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Let's get to it.
Get to it. So one of the things we're going to talk about that Dolly and I talk about personally a lot is the Overachiever Complex.
What?
And what it's like to feel like a failure sometimes because you're used to being really good at things.
Yeah. I would like to say that to show how much of an overachiever I am and how much I relate to Remy, I thought I got my first B plus last semester in geology, and I would like to make it clear I actually got an A minus when I went to go send off my college transcript to NIRA, and I sent a group text message to my whole entire family, and I'm like, I am carrying the torch. I'm still a straight A student because that Cody dropped the baton in high school. So I'm carrying the torch for my mom on the academic side. But yes, being an overachiever, I feel like I fit that description to a T. And although it comes with some really positive aspects, like it pushes you to work harder than anyone else, it comes with a lot of downfalls, and then you have to address those downfalls constantly. So
Yeah, or you end up like me, who's like, burnt out and crippled. So what do you?
yeah.
No, it's like you said with school, right? So for me, it was the same thing. I went to a really good school. We were all told we were really smart, and we all started applying to colleges. So we had safety schools, probable schools, and then reach schools. And then when you start getting like letters of denial, you're like, but I'm not super special.
Yeah.
Not everybody wants me. And then you get to college,
Right.
and you're like, there's a lot of really talented people out there. And it's the same
Yeah.
thing with showing horses, right? Like you think you're
Yeah.
the best or that you're very good, and then you get out into the real world and you're like, there's just as many talented people that work just as hard, if not harder than me.
Yeah.
And it's a rude awakening, man.
It is. And I would say more so now, uh, being in Colorado. I'm not in Colorado right now. I've been in Texas since end of January. It's kind of the big big fish small pond. And then you get down here and it's like there's hundreds of me with just the caliber of horses. Everyone works hard at, maybe not kids my age, but the people at the top, everyone's working just as hard. Like that can't set you apart at this point. And it is a little bit of a rude awakening, like you said, with the college denial letters of everyone's special, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's more so what can I do to set me apart? Because everyone's busting ass. So you better find something that's going to set you apart from everyone else. And sometimes it's not just working harder, and it's finding ways to work smarter, which I'm terrible at because I'll just nose to the grindstone, like run myself into the ground. And that's not the smartest thing to do. So now it's like, what can I do to work smarter than everyone else? Because I know I'm working as hard or harder, but that can only get you so far before you said you just burn out and crash and burn, which I am I'm the queen at. And my crash and burns end up with me like at the hospital, IV fluids, and this just happened like 3 weeks ago. We had the plague run through here, but that's another story.
Yeah, but like you've been hospitalized for flu A, B,
Yeah.
And part of it is like, again, it's how do you set yourself apart? And you and I have talked personally, right? Sometimes you just have to grind through it and trust it and hope that it's going to work out. And I think when you're used to being successful, it's really hard because you're like, I'm doing all the things correctly, doing everything right.
Right.
And this is what I get. Like,
yeah.
I'm not winning. I'm not consistently placing. I'm not the top of this. I'm not the top of that. And it's frustrating. You have to trust the system, and that's what I like. For me, like, I had to grind out a lot of stuff where, I was used to not having to grind things out.
Yeah.
And, so you're in Texas. What are you doing in Texas right now, aside from, running the Cloverleaf?
Well, if you're watching on video, I'm in a tack room, and Fallon Taylor was gracious enough to let me and 6 of my horses come crash at her place. And in exchange for free room and board and food, I'm just doing whatever I'm told to do. Yes, ma'am. And I think it's great because Fallon does not have a bad horse. And that is not to be taken lightly. There's not a dink around here. So it mostly consists of me just interacting with unicorns all day, which is great.
Yeah.
There are a lot of unicorns, so we stay pretty busy. And Fallon is a mom. Everyone knows Fallon. She's a mom, and her primary focus is her businesses at this stage in life, I would say. So I feel as though I can help her with the horses, even if it's just doing the busy work, like pulling mares for the vet, because we're in the midst of breeding season right now. Like, as soon as I get off the phone with Remy, we have someone going to pick up cold semen, so that hopefully after lunch today we can get a mare bred, because she's at like a 35 right now, so we're hoping she's at a 40 today and whatnot. But in short, I came down to Texas to be amongst the best, because this is the hub. This is the mecca for horses in general, barrel racing, everything, performance horses. To get out of the cold, I say that it is freezing.
You were dressed for the cold, so I mean, maybe it's not the same cold, but it still looks cold.
It's actually a worse cold, I found. And when the wind blows, it's fairly miserable, but it is what it is.
I'll tell you, I've never been as cold as I've been at Fort Worth, at like the John Justin in Fort Worth. Like, of all the places I've been skiing, everything, never been as cold as I've been there. Mm-hmm. No, I think that's like, so I have discussions with a lot of the guys that I grew up showing English with. Like, we all grew up as like, this is what you are. You're a barn rat, right? Like, you trade off your services for knowledge, right? That's what you're doing. So, like, I grew up as a barn rat too. So my parents paid to have horses in training, and then I'd still go and work for all these trainers. And when I was in college, I worked for Mike and Christy Berg, but I never got paid. I just traded off working for them. Now, again, I was full-time in college because I got to learn so much stuff. Yes. But it means you got to, it was hours of me wrapping horses or round penning horses and sitting there and putting in the grunt work to gain a little bit of knowledge. And I think especially, like your generation, it's, well, okay, I figured it out. I watched it on YouTube. I bought some nice horses. I have enough of a following. Like, I know what I'm doing. Now, a lot of those people aren't making horses, and then, like, I love watching all the TikTok wars, Fallon's included.
Yeah.
Because, like, you've got all these girls, right? And they're like, oh, well, this is the only way. And I was like, no, as you get older, you will figure out that it is not a one size fits all for training horses, because, like you said, you have one right now that you can't warm up. She runs fine, can't warm her up. And so, it's, I think that's the other thing you figure out as you get older. Like, you have to be really solid in what you believe about yourself and not listen to anyone else. I'm Not always great at that.
And the biggest thing that I've taken away from being down here is this is a business, because I am totally guilty of letting my emotions get wrapped up in horses, and it's caused me to keep horses for too long, and then you just make yourself miserable being around these things, and then your horse resents you. So like, treat this like a business, and B, back to the overachiever perfectionism, that is not applicable in horse training. And everyone, it's the mentality of like, always end on a good note, always end on a good note. Fallon's like, end so you can get this thing trained tomorrow. So whatever, like, ride for tomorrow. And Fallon's coined phrase is she trains these things like a drunken sailor, because at the end of the day, we fall to the level of our training. Not, we don't rise to it in competition under pressure when there's, especially at rodeos, like at futurities, you can train for more of a perfect environment. And that's what I've been around. Andre Coelho from Brazil has been super instrumental in my life, and I owe everything to this guy. But Andre, futurities and derbies, these are aged events, controlled environments, perfect ground. Fallon rodeos. So seeing both sides of that, of like drunken sailor rodeo, you need to be able to call on this horse anytime, any place, any circumstance, and then kind of combine what Andre showed me of like doing things very correctly, keeping things very soft. I'm hoping that I can like Mod Podge these two styles together. But because I have a tendency of overachiever perfectionism, it helps to be around someone like Fallon to just consistently get it done, however that looks like. Sometimes you're not going to end on a good note, and that's okay, because it's not worth you spending 30 minutes of your time getting in an all-out war with this horse, and then they resent you. Like, even if you end on a bad note, but maybe you can let that thought marinate in your horse's head, tomorrow's going to be great. Tomorrow's going to be the greatest ride you probably ever had. If you're just okay with letting that horse like end on a bad note, or not necessarily a bad note, but a correction.
So yeah, it's like so going back, like I used to break a lot of colts.
Yeah.
And I would do the same thing. I'm like, okay, I want to do X, Y, and Z today.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, Jesus Christ, I didn't even get to like letter H today, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I learned to figure out like, okay, and it's like the end on a good note, right? Like, I don't care if I wanted to get lead changes today and all I got was good circles and lead changes were not coming. Like, okay, so today I'm going to go lope like one more nice circle and not pull my hair out. But it takes a lot. It takes getting in all out wars with horses and getting tired and all this stuff to come away from it and be like, that didn't fix them. It didn't fix me. If anything, again, I resent this animal now, right? Like, I'm pissed off because I did all the things right and you didn't listen, right?
Yeah.
And as a horse trainer, that's where being an overachiever and having like very rigid ideas hurts you, because no animal is the same to a point. Like no animal is the same, but you're like, oh, I did this. And like, especially when we were doing batches of 2-year-olds, I'd be like, okay, I know what I'm going to do next year. I know how I'm going to change my program. I know what's going to work. I know it doesn't work. And then you get in a batch of 2-year-olds and none of your tricks worked.
No,
nothing worked. And I was like, okay, I feel like an asshole now. Like,
yeah.
And so, but it's true. Like, Andrea Papani was over at Mike's one time and his kids were riding dirt bikes. That's why he was there. And I was schooling on a horse and he looks at me and goes, if you can't get it done in 15 minutes, you can't get it done. And I'm like, I know the guys that work for you. You look for like 45. Like, this is ridiculous. He goes, if it doesn't happen in 15 minutes, it won't happen. And it revolutionized horse training for me, because you can continue stuff, but at the same time, like, Also, like, you know, you're pissing them off, you're pissing yourself off, you didn't get anything done. And if you didn't get their, and it was, if you didn't get their mind right, it wasn't about conditioning their body. If you didn't get their mind right, it didn't matter. And
Yes.
I mean, I see it in baseball too. Like, we do drills right now because it's early training season, and you watch those kids get bored about halfway through. And it's the same thing with horses. Like, when you drill and drill and drill, they're like, I didn't learn anything, and now I'm bored.
Yes.
So I understand. You don't have to end on a good note. You have to not end in a fight, because if they're really smart, they come to fight you the next day.
Yeah. 100%. And I think, not to go too far off on a tangent, and Andre's always been really good about this, just observing him, but barrel racers in general, they're always looking for a quick fix, a drill, a bit. And Andre's always been like, when he showed up to our house from Brazil, I'm not kidding you, like, all of his equipment came in like a duffel bag. And this guy's been training horses his entire life. And Andre has 3 or 4 go-to bits, and he can make anything look good. Now, those tools work for Andre and him, and a lot of them do work for me just because I've spent a lot of time with him. But a lot of it is just how you approach it more than anything, like you said, and being okay with going the direction the horse is going to go. And so I get that from Andre. And then Fallon, because Andre is definitely perfectionist, overachiever, I'd say, when it comes to his horses, more so than Fallon. But that's because he's training for futurities and derbies. So if Andre can spend a little bit more time with that. But at the end of the day, one of my goals is to qualify for the national finals rodeo. So I need to see how Fallon does it. Of like, this horse just needs to do its job at the end of the day, and however we get there is how we get there. And that looks different for each horse, and it's definitely less programmed, it's less structured, but I think it's in a weird way helping me become a better horseman, because I'm finding out how to not just like put them in this box. Like, what do I have to do to get this horse to work today? And especially a lot of these horses getting into more higher caliber barrel horses are really weird. They're really hot. And you kind of just have to like do what you can to make this thing not hate you, blow its brain up, and make running barrels fun at the end of the day. Because if these horses think running barrels is fun, it's a pretty easy job relative to other sports. Like, this should not be as difficult on them as and there should be less training than cutting cow horse reining. But these things have to run really hard, and that's not good for most horses' heads. So I it's been beyond helpful. I don't
Yeah.
know where I was going with that.
No, it's like, but so it's like the same thing in life, right? Like, you have to learn to ride the crazy, which is not fun when you like to have control. Like, I'm okay not having control. So,
Yeah, I don't have control most of the time.
but like, you know, it's this very weird space where you're like, I want to be the best, but I also don't want to control everything,
Yeah.
because, you know.
And I know we talked a lot this summer. Last year, horse wise, for me, was a brutal. And I remember 1 or 2 phone calls with Remy this summer where it's like, I'm doing everything right. I know I am. I'm taking really good care of my horses. And it feels like literally everything I'm touching right now is dying, besides Jerry. And Jerry's my yellow horse. But I started off the year on the best horse I've had to that point. He tore his deep digital flexor tendon completely in Jackson, Mississippi. That was my 3rd rodeo on him. First pro rodeo, qualify for Denver.
Yeah.
Missed coming back to the semifinals in Denver by like 200ths of a second. This is the horse's first actual rodeo performance. He got an abscess. Long story short, first run back after the abscess, blew his deep digital flexor tendon in Jackson, Mississippi, got put down 2 days later in Ocala, Florida, came back from my first attempt at rodeos with one less horse in the trailer. Actually, I had one more coming home because I picked up two on the way home. But what came out of that was my futurity horse for this year. And this is the first year that I've won money in like the 1D open futurities with, I've won youth money, but this is with the people who are dominating the industry. Like, my name is next to, not consistently, but next to Jolene Montgomery, Cassie Mowry. So a blessing came out of that. So I kind of started to build. And then this summer, I had a horse break its pelvis bone with me in the middle of a run, bleed out in the stalls. The mare that Fallon sent me home with to run at the high school rodeos, because I was finishing out my high school rodeos last year. After her first pro rodeo, which was Greeley, placing in the first round, which is a big deal. And Greeley is just one of the more wild setups, I would say.
It's a beast. Like it's like Salinas and all that. Like,
yeah, it's just weird, really weird. Places in the first round, hauler to Thermopolis, Wyoming the next day, hit some barrels, but it just really wasn't that mare set up the ground. So whatever, spend more or less 12 hours to hit barrels. Get on her the next day to see how she's moving. Mare's crippled. Fortunately, it ended up just being a bone contusion, but it presented as a hind horn suspensory. So that was scary. But then I had to get off this mare that I had just gone to winning on for basically the entire summer. So my circuit final goals kind of got pushed back. And I just ended up being a few out of that. But the good thing that came out of that is that I was entered up. And I had this yellow horse sitting around who's 5 years old. And I just started taking him to all these places. And what I got out of that is now my best horse right now, the one I feel most confident on, at least. That's Jerry. I refer to Jerry a lot. He's just talking about how to get around one. Jerry, with the exception of being in Fallon's arena, for whatever reason, this horse likes it here. He's terrible to ride. And I just had to figure out how to make this thing go around barrels and do it fast in a rodeo scenario. And so I think those are and then I had another horse, a futurity horse for last year, Derby horse for this year. Remy's like,
yeah, I know. That's what I thought you were going to go to. The picture makes me sick.
Yeah. Horse, we've had these water tanks at our place for as long as I've been there. 15 years. I would say we've been at the place we currently are. My dad built steel fence around it so that horses don't paw the automatic waters. We have never had issues with it. This horse one day sticks his leg somehow in between that railing and the water, and so his front left leg is just hanging there. Fortunately, Cody sees it happen. Cody and I get a halter on this thing. Cody gets it sedated. I'm on its head side. We are cutting this thing out, and he had to move his front leg forward or backwards to get around the opening because beneath this water is a concrete pad. So his only way out is he has to create some sort of separation. Horse freaks out. He lands on top of me. he's kind of thrashing around on top of me, but I know if I let go, your horse.
She'll come back. Maybe.
Dad,
You
are
got,
you there?
yeah, hold on. Start it back. Okay. So horse thrashing around on top of you.
Yep. Dad and Cody pull me out. The horse breaks its leg right in half, snap, and I break some ribs. So I put down 3 good horses last year, and just injuries. That was really difficult to be with because I am a control freak and I do everything in my power to mitigate anything that might stop me from doing what I want to do, achieving what I want to do. And last year just showed me, like, the more you try to control this, the more it's going to feel out of control. And that's something I still struggle with, but it's kind of like, what's going to happen is what's going to happen. And truly the only thing you can control is your attitude. And even I have to remind myself at jackpots, like, I can go to a jackpot, be dang near, like, have 2 horses in the top 5. Everyone works good. Literally the next day, take a trailer full and everyone has a terrible day. Well, what changed between today and yesterday? Absolutely nothing. But these things are creatures. So I could get super emotional about this, or I could just take the emotion out of it, stay right in the middle, repeat the process, go back to what I've been doing all week to prepare, and do it again. And I'll probably make good runs the next time. It's just how it goes. And last year it was extreme ups and downs, but it makes it easier to just stay in the middle with kind of more normal ups and downs, which is, I mean, Remy's known me since I was a kid. I'm definitely the kid who would come out of a team pinning run, something would go wrong, and I'd be crying, so upset. Never whooped on a horse, because if I did that, Jim Ward would yank me off a horse. So I probably, like, pulled on one once or twice that I shouldn't have, and that halted quickly. Also, never trotted a horse on concrete, asphalt, rocks, any of that. So when I see kids doing that, it drives me insane. But
Yeah, the
yeah,
amount of kids that like run full bore across things for no reason. I'm like,
they
okay.
could be dang near calling my name at a barrel race, and I'm in the parking lot, and, like, if I have to trot a horse across rocks, I'm like, I'm about to get yanked off a horse right now.
No,
But
it's like you said, you had a really bad year. You and I talked a lot because I was like, hey, you
yeah,
got to trust it, because it's one of those things where you're like, is this a test, right? Is this a test from the universe that I'm supposed to continue? Or is this a sign of the universe like, no, this is not for you, friend?
yeah, honestly.
And how do you differentiate that? Because there's sometimes where I was like, for me, right? Like you get trotted out, you got to sell the cows, the stuff we got going on with the county,
Yes.
where you're just like, so is this a sign that I'm supposed to move on or persevere? And then sometimes you feel like I am much better at going with the flow, right? Like it'll be what it's going to be. We're supposed to get to where we're supposed to get to. Maybe it took me more turns to get there, but it's not always fun, and a lot of times it's frightening. I do that, and I try and be that friend for people, but also, like, it sucks because you do have to trust the process, right? Like, I call it riding the crazy. You got to ride the crazy for a while before you get to the other side. And
Yeah.
but no, I mean, that was a rough year last year, and like you said, there's positives that come out of it. But you started off your year in Denver almost making the semis, right? Like, we
Yeah.
watched the Cowboy Channel. I watched your dad roll his ankle. It was pretty funny. Um, but, like, you start your year off and then it doesn't go the way you plan. And if you tend towards perfection, you're like, okay, well, I did all the things right and now it didn't work. So what did I do wrong? And I think you see that with a lot of people too, where they lose a little bit of success and then they change completely what they're doing. No, you have to trust the process that got you the success in the first place, rather than abandoning ship and hoping Like you said, going from one, okay, what did I do differently? I didn't do anything differently. It was just a shitty day. Okay.
Yeah.
But when you're
And
younger, it's like, okay, well, I need to do this and I need to try that and I need to.
I need to change this. And I can vividly remember one night asking you, after the third horse dies, I'm like, is this a sign that I just need to, I don't want to be done with barrel horses ever. I've never not wanted to ride, but it's like, do I need to take a step back from this and seriously look at what's going on? Because financially, this is just going terribly wrong. Mentally in the dumps, physically broken. And I sent Remy a text. I was like, when you have time for a phone call, I need to talk to you because what the hell is going on? And when things do start to go wrong, our instinct is to just start changing things to try to get back and claw your way back to where you were. But back to the Fallon and Andre deal, obviously these are two very successful people. There's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. So the most important thing is to just consistently do what works for you, whatever that is. And that is really hard to maintain when it just feels like everything else around you is in absolute shambles and you just want to clench on and like control, when the thing you have to do is just, it is what it is. It's going to be what it's going to be, and just keep your blinders on and do what's gotten you to that point. And that's really hard to do because it's like, well, what's gotten me to this point is 3 dead horses. So do I need to change? But it's like, no, look at all the successes you have had. There's a reason you were put in those positions to have these super talented horses in your life, and you got to go back to that consistently every single day, even when it's not fun, even when you have broken ribs. Like, it is what it is, and it's very difficult. It makes you super mentally tough. It sucks though. It really
Yeah,
does
I
suck.
mean, and it's one of those things, right? Like in that phone call, also, I told you, I was like, you need to go sit still for 10 minutes in your barn, which makes you feel like you're going to crawl out of your fucking skin. Like, fully aware of how that makes you feel.
Yeah.
But at the same time, right? Like, you end up being hospitalized for a lot of different things, really, which is, it all comes down to exhaustion because you overwork yourself, which
Yeah.
we all, and like, it's not unique to a lot of things. I think it's especially unique to agriculture, so training horses, farming, ranching, whatever, because we're always like, well, there's something else that can be done, right?
Yep.
It's never the end of the day, because, and like, I've gotten better about that because I used to do the same thing. Like, I'd wake up early, I'd ride till midnight, like, okay, no problem. And eventually it catches up with you, and maybe it won't. It caught up with me, but you just don't realize when you're in the middle of it, because there's always a goal you're working for. How hard can I work? Because I'm going to outwork everybody, right? I'm going to claw my way to the top, and I'm going to take control of it. And eventually you just can't. So I had to get better about, on young horses, letting, like, good enough being good enough, right? Doesn't mean you have to go back to the good note. So like, it isn't for me, it's not a good note. It's just good enough for today, right?
Yes.
Would I have liked to move all those cattle today? Yes, but I got the main chunk of it done today. Like, would I have liked to haul all this today? Okay, well, I got most of it done. And it sucks because it sounds like you're settling, but you're not settling. You're just realizing that maybe things aren't working out the way you wanted. We had a run of horses like that, and that's why I think we talked about it that day. I had a run of horses where we lost like 3 really good horses within a year.
Yeah.
And it sucks because it's the same thing, right? You're like, these are the horses I wanted. This is what I wanted. Like, I had the string I wanted. It happened to us actually this last year. We had a mare shatter her lower pastern. Like, she was James's new mare to go
Yep.
to. It sucks. Like, because you kind of pin all your, same thing with the futurity horse, same thing with the good rodeo horse, right? You kind of pin your dreams for this season on that horse.
Yes.
And then they're
And
broken and you're like, oh, okay.
and a little bit, especially with that first horse that got put down in Ocala, Florida, I attached so much of my identity to that horse. Like, this was the horse I was going to do it on, that I was going to accomplish so much of my goals on. And when that horse got put down, it was like I had to grieve that in a really weird way, almost more so than the horse, because I've been around it long enough to, like, and my dad's always been very good about this, is that at the end of the day, these things are going to die. But you have to be careful going, like, to not wrap your identity in these horses. And the best thing for you and that horse, a little bit, as much as we love these things, is to take as much emotion as we can out of it. And definitely don't attach your identity and your dreams and your goals to these things. Because the great part about horses now is, as special as that horse was, there's hundreds like him. And that's why this is so difficult. And Cody always says this, because Cody is so good about not getting attached to horses. He's like, they make and breed better ones every single day. So if letting go of this horse is going to help you progress quicker, that's something you need to do. Or if it's going to make you happier, it's something you need to do. Or when shit goes wrong, that way you're not so wrapped up in this. Because for 2 months straight, I would say I was just more miserable to be around than I normally am. I'm not a fun person to be around, because Loralee's idea of fun is work out, clean stalls, ride horses, and eat steaks. That's it. So I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but Cody called me out on it. He's like, you're being shitty and you just need to get over it. And that's what it came down to. Fortunately, I had other horses coming down the pipe to help me get over that and help me start working towards something else. But it just goes back to, these are horses, they're animals, and as good as care we can take it of them, what is going to happen is what is going to happen, and you just can't get wrapped up in it. And that's hard as a control freak.
No, it's really hard, but it's like you said too, like you and I have talked about this personally also, right? So like your dreams are tied to that horse.
Yeah.
Is it dumb? Maybe, but like we're all guilty, and I'm not calling you dumb. We're all guilty of it, right? Like if I have this, I can be that, right?
Yep.
And then what happens too is like you put a lot of pressure. There's a lot of expectations on you. You increase the expectations on yourself. And for better or worse, sometimes, you know what, like you get to be miserable for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I think like you and I have talked about that personally, and it's it doesn't just happen to women, but it happens to women more. Like, why aren't you smiling? Why aren't you talking more? Why aren't you doing this? Well, fuck you. Like, it's okay if you don't do it, right? But let me go be miserable by myself. Don't include yourself in my misery. Like, don't try to interact with me. Let me be miserable. Let me pop my earbuds in and go about my business, because this is how I'm handling it. But I mean, you have to be both, right? You have to smile and nod, but you also have to take your space where you're like, hey, I don't feel good.
Yeah.
And like you said, you recognize that, hey, I wasn't just the horse, because yes, it's sad that the horse died, but at the same time, it's like the death of your dream. That's not fun.
No.
And, you know, you came back from it, but it's still the death of a dream. You have something envisioned. You have all these hopes and aspirations tied to that, and then it goes away. Well, it's a big part of your identity. It's a big part of your thought process. And as someone that's like a planner like you, that's like, this is what we're going to do. Well, then how do I do it? Right. Because you took the main component away from me for a minute. And again, you came back, but it's tougher than people think. And it's a lot more pressure than people understand.
Yeah.
And some people are good at shutting it off. Like you said, Cody's good. Like at 5 o'clock, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I've gotten better about it, but I used to be the same thing. I'm like, but there's so much more for me to do.
And a lot of it too, again, I'm in the midst of all this, and I would say now I at least recognize why I am the way I am, but I still act like a barn rat, how you're describing.
Yeah.
Just wake up early, ride until you're blue in the face. And I'm okay with that. And I recognize I'm in the midst of that, and it's not sustainable, but it's kind of a stage I'm in life.
Mhm.
And I know I need to find outlets, but I've not found much, like I said, that brings me genuine joy besides the workout, clean stalls, ride horses, eat steak.
Yeah.
And that's not sustainable. So I'm working towards
Yeah, but
better things.
it's sustainable at this point in your life, right? Like
It is.
it's the same thing for me, right? So when I was in college, woke up early, rode horses, went to classes, and I like my school was an hour and a half away.
Yeah.
Classes all day. Did as much work as I could because I had to sit in traffic coming home. So I've got like, textbooks open in the car doing
Yeah.
coming home and working. And then like I go down, wake up, go down, work for the Bergs, come home, go to school, come home and ride my own horses. Like, and it made me a really good horseman. I had to ride a lot of horses. So, my whole life, like I said, I'd work for trainers, which means that you figure out how no horse is the
They
same.
operate.
Yeah, and so it's like run any horse underneath me you can, and I will take advantage of riding them.
Yeah.
But it probably wasn't until even when I was pregnant with Kyle, like I still worked like that, and now I'm just like,
Yeah.
maybe I just don't want to, but I still James and I had this conversation yesterday. I still love riding horses, still love training people. I just don't crave the grind like I used to. Like, and I used to love loping horses. Not that I don't like loping horses, but like I could lope horses for like 12 hours a day working on circles and turnarounds.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I'm gonna go lope you. We're gonna work some cows, then I'm gonna put you up. Like,
Yeah.
and but there's nothing wrong with getting caught in that grind. Like I'm telling you, it's not sustainable, but I don't mean right now. Like this is the season of your life that
Yes.
you can, bust your ass to get there. And you are getting there.
It just, I feel partly guilty, I will say, because I I can recognize this is the stage of life I'm in, and it's very beautiful, but I'm not super fun to be around. And it's not that I don't want to do what's perceived as fun, but I crave this so much right now that my brain can't really go elsewhere, nor does it have the space to go elsewhere. I am glad that I do have people like you in my life, and my parents and my brother kind of like reminding me, hey, this isn't sustainable. Like, make sure you have the perspective that this doesn't work long term. And I recognize that. Now, does that necessarily change like how hard I'm willing to work right now? Probably not. But it's at least in the back of my head. And it sucks because when you want to win so bad and you crave winning and being
She'll go back. It'll show
that
back up.
high achiever more than, and am I good?
Your guy came back.
Okay. When you crave achieving at the highest level, it's not, you're not a very fun person to be around, but it's something you can't really deny. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just the stage I'm at right now. But I'm happy I at least have the perspective of,
Yeah, and I think like so I've been around really successful people that I've also read like lots of biographies of successful people. Like successful people, like we tend to be very like esoteric and navel looking, right? Because we care we care about specific things. Like, you know, you can't very few people can be the life of the party and hyper successful
yeah,
because you just don't have that much energy. And if you really want to put a lot of your energy into something, you don't have time for other things. Like I partied in high school more than I partied in college because I got it out of my system. By the time I got to college, I was like, hey, this is what I want to do, right? I want to do these
right,
things. And for me, it was an awakening too. Okay, so I spent my senior year in the stacks doing all the stuff, and I applied to graduate school, and then I was like, do I really want to spend the next 4 years doing the same research I just did? No, I don't. I want to get paid to ride pretty ponies and play with cows. Now it doesn't mean like, and I say that like jokingly, like it's very tongue in cheek. Like I get paid to ride pretty ponies, which is 100% true. I do get paid to ride pretty ponies, but like it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating, and you have to deal with clients, and it's not just getting on and going. And that's the other thing where you're at right now. Like, you're riding for yourself for the most part, right? Like, that's the greatest part. Like,
Yeah. It's
horses are the
glorious.
easy part. Everything else is difficult.
Yeah.
But and it goes back to, like you said at the beginning, you have to look at this as a business. And so, like, me as a trainer, when I tell people that I love this horse, right? Love this horse. This is my heart horse. I'm like, okay, you'll love whatever you win on. Maybe not right away, but you'll learn to love whatever you win on. And if you're lucky, you get phenomenal horses that you can also win on.
That's, like I said, Jerry and Cody will tell you, like, this asshole, just terrible to be around. He, like I said, rides around decent here, but this horse just does not feel how you want it to feel. When he wins, he doesn't feel how you want him to feel. It feels terrible. But guess what? He wins, and I love him, and I will work around him. So that's so accurate.
And if you wouldn't have had all the tragedy, you probably wouldn't have rode him as much, right? You wouldn't have called on him. Yeah, exactly.
I would have, tried to make him a better horse and told Fallon, hey, like, Jerry's a little bit more seasoned. I'll send him back to you whenever you're ready for him. But it was out of desperation. You do not have anything that's old enough to go, and you're entered. You have this yellow horse, and he's a tool, so use him, make him work. How? And I would tell Cody, trying to tune and find this horse. I literally just went around the barrels in whatever fashion Jerry wanted to go around the barrels. I just tried to make sure it was efficient and fast. That was it.
Yep.
And still to this day, like, the way I work this horse, which is like once a week, we trot through the barrels twice. It's like, we work in the style that works for Jerry, and we're done. And I try it is so hard for me still just to not nitpick this thing and pull on him because he's pulling on you. And it's like, nope, he wins. And the horse has taught me a lot. He kept this semi-enjoyable over the summer because it was like, well, if anything, take Jerry to a jackpot, you're probably going to win money.
Yeah.
And B, Jerry showed me that there's more than one way to do this, and what's in your head is probably not what's going to work for this horse. So figure out what works for this horse and be a good enough horseman to just be okay with that. Make it work.
Yeah, part of it, you should cut out, but like part of it's letting go of your ego too, right? I expect this. Okay, great.
Yeah.
You can expect that, and then it doesn't work out. Like, I remember, especially when I was showing horses, like, there'd be some runs that felt phenomenal, right? And then you'd watch the video and you're like, that is not what it felt like. And then there's other ones that feel trashy and you're like, it looks good. Okay, so I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. But Jerry, man, the horse, whatever mental health I had over the summer, I attribute all of that to that yellow horse, that yellow asshole, because I can remember so many times this summer where things just went terribly wrong. I'm like, I'm putting Jerry in the trailer by himself. Loralee's going to a barrel race because I don't know anything else that brings me joy. And I'm going to win money. And that's what it's going to be. I'm leaving all you other assholes at home because I can't count on you. And I can call on that horse any time, any place. And that's why I haven't. And that's why it's easier now for me to just let go of horses, because I have the mentality of, if I can't trust this thing like I do Jerry, and it's not a 4-year-old that I can win money on, and I know how 4-year-old barrel horses operate. Like, there's going to be ups and downs. You can't quite have the same expectations as you do for Jerry. If it's not Jerry, or if it's not a good 4-year-old, I don't have time for it. But without all these hardships, I would not have that perspective. So
No, I know. And it's like, before we get the hate mail for it. It's not one of those things. What happens, like you say stuff like that and people will take like, oh, well, you shouldn't put time in. No, again, right? Is it a test?
Yes.
Or is this the sign? Like, so for me, like, and it's, I tell people the same thing when I look at horses, like I can tell in a first ride if I like a horse or not.
Yeah.
Right. If they have the talent that I want, they have the personality that I want. So some of them are talented and I don't like them that much, but we'll still ride them, right? Their talent is worth the effort. And as you get old, like it's the same thing that you're figuring out, right? Okay, so they can be talented and just an asshole that doesn't help you win. Because winning fixes everything. Like that sounds horrible. Winning fixes everything, right? So they're super talented and they don't fit your program and they don't make you happy and you don't want to step on them. They have to be gone.
Yeah.
And like I tell clients, like if I have clients with multiple horses and I go, if you never want to call on that horse, if that's never your first choice, sell it.
Yep.
Because like I have different horses that work on different kinds of cattle. I have different horses that I keep around for different things. But like I said, if I never walk out and I'm like, yeah, I want to ride that one.
Yeah.
Then it shouldn't be in my barn.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, I'm going to say it again, right? Like you will learn to love whatever you win on.
Yeah.
And like Fallon had like a series on it, right? Like the heart horse, like you get attached to horses. Okay. But if they're not a winner, now you've wasted your time and really that horse's time. Cause I'll do, like I've told clients before, hey, this horse isn't going to work. And they'll come back like, or it'll work, but you're going to spend way too much money to get it to work. Let's cut our losses and move on. And they'll come back like a year and a half later, sending it to like 10 other trainers. They're like, look how nice this horse is. And I was like, yes, but you wasted a year and a half and $15,000 when we could have just
found you a new one.
And you could have found the right horse for that. Like we have plenty of horses that are super nice. They just don't fit our program. They don't fit my client's program. Okay. I'll move them down the road. It doesn't mean they're not athletic. It doesn't mean they're not talented. It doesn't mean they don't try. They're just not for us.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I think that's where, especially girls that want to run barrels or rodeo or do whatever, they run into the problem like, this will be my horse. That'll get me through it. And I love this horse. And because I'm bonded with this horse, he'll take me there.
Yeah.
It can only take you so far.
It don't work.
I know. I really wish it did. Like there's plenty. I had some really nice ones that I loved and were good all around horses. They just weren't special enough to do other things with.
And I don't want to make this completely about Fallon, but it is seriously so insightful being here because she's having to cull horses right now that are some of the best horses I've ever ridden. And I've asked her, I'm like, what is happening? Why are you culling this? She's like, this horse at this point in its life does not align with my life and my goals. And it sucks, but it's a business. So this horse has to go. And if it wins with someone else, it makes me look even better.
Yeah.
And it's like,
because it's true. Like you'll see, so I was talking to Morgan Cromer one time and Jake's been so Jake Panero rides for whatever, is her assistant, right? And he's been showing some knockdown really nice horses. And I was talking to Morgan, why is Jake showing that one and not you? She goes, it doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Like, so instead of her, and she goes, we don't have enough time for this. So if they don't work for me in a couple rides, they go to someone that it'll work for.
Yep.
She's like, because it's not, she said the same thing. It's not worth her ego to show it under her and waste all the time that she could have put into a horse that works for her and is the right style.
And in the long run, so much happier. And that's why I think when you look at someone like Fallon, she is incredibly happy. And I'm trying to get to that point, like, cull the ones you don't like. And that's also why Cody is a really happy guy most of the time, because if Cody doesn't just want to get on that horse, he makes a nice Facebook post for it and he sends it on down.
Yep.
Down the road. And for so long, I just had the idea, I need to make this horse a winner. Well, guess what? As talented as you are, Loralee, you're probably not going to make it happen. So just move the horse down the road before you want to pull your hair out and you spend 45 minutes a day on this horse when you could be spending 45 minutes taking better care of a horse that wins for you.
Yeah. And probably less time, right? Because it's less time when they want to be good for you.
Yeah. No, just like, you don't need to ride that thing longer, but go take better care of it. Go bedded stall down with shavings. Go run for running horses, especially, like, you can't ride these things for long periods of time. So go do a spa treatment on that horse. Like, your best use of time is to do maintenance and upkeep on this horse instead of spending 45 minutes getting in a knockdown, drag out fight with this horse that you don't like. Then at the end of it, you're so resentful that you don't even want to go in the barn. Just sell the thing. Bye.
Yeah, like, don't let the animosity build, because that's the other thing that happens, right? Like, you let it build, and then, like, that horse maybe doesn't do something super bad, but you're like, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Because, like, you're already pissed off before you get on.
Yeah.
I've done it. When I was riding young horses, I used to, if I was having a bad day, I would not ride the young horses. I'd round pen them or stick them on the walker, because I'm like, I am of no value today. Like, yeah. But again, I had to, that only came after ruining some nice horses.
Yeah. I think I'm in the midst of that too. I'm going to ruin some good ones, which sucks.
It sucks, but it's like, and like when we say ruin, we don't really mean to ruin. They just, you don't elevate them to their,
yeah, you don't optimize their potential.
No, and so if you don't find their potential, and again, like, I think the other thing too is, so we had a client buy a really nice horse. Like, I could win if I had that horse. And I was like, you could give me Serena Williams racket. Doesn't mean I can win at tennis. Right. Like, the tool has to fit. Everything has to work. But I'm like, you do ruin a lot of good ones on the way to figuring out how to make better ones.
Yeah.
And like Cody said, like, there's a pipeline of horses. It's the same thing. Public service announcement. If you're looking for a horse and they pressure you to buy it, and they're like, you'll never find another one like this, there's 50 more of them. In the color you want, with the mane length you want. You just have to.
That's what I was just gonna say. In the color you want too.
Yeah. Right.
You might have to pay a little bit more, but they make them.
And it's that's like, we get those clients like, oh, they said that it won't be available. I'm like, it might not be. There'll be 10 other. Just don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's gonna be just fine.
All right, well,
a thing.
I'm gonna go get 45 more minutes of sleep before I have to wake up for the voice. It was a pleasure talking with you as always, Dolly.
It was good talking to you too, Remy.
All right, I love you. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, I'll drink some coffee.
Yeah, that's my next stop. Bye.
Bye.